Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast, another mini episode. These are little episodes I release on a Sunday to, tackle a really small, pointed point from my point of view solely. And today I'm going to talk about this idea that is kind of proliferated through various men's circles around there being a war on men. And to be honest, I think it's bollocks. There's really, from my experience of working with men, right? So I've been working with men on and off for 15 years, actually. Like I first started coaching men over 15 years ago. And I would say that there is no war on men. To say there's a war on men would be to say that someone or some entity is deliberately trying to kill men or kill the spirit of men. And the truth is if you go back far enough, if you go back to world wars, that's when men were being killed in large numbers, right? We don't have many wars these days that really are killing large amounts of men. Like obviously we got the conflict in Ukraine, but when you compare that to say World War One and Two, it's actually quite small numbers, right? So there's no war on men. What there is there's a lot of distraction that men get into. And I'm not talking about boys here. I'm talking about men, actually grown men, where we don't take responsibility for our lives. Even the idea there's a war on men is us outsourcing the responsibility to somebody else, saying that someone else is attacking our lives and making our lives hard. And I would ask the question is, are we making our lives hard ourselves, right? Because what I see more and more of men is men not taking responsibility for their own lives and just following fear and following worry and following distraction, right? For instance, you've got things like porn, our mobile phones, casual sex, drugs, endless entertainment like Netflix, TV, Amazon Prime, even laziness, right? Is it something I see men get into? Just being lazy, like not doing anything, not going after what's meaningful to them. Or men get really sucked into greed, like this idea of being a man, meaning that you need to make loads of money and have the cars and stuff like that, and their lives being derailed and being completely focused on the greed and the collection of things. Or men just being really ignorant to other people's plights and just seeing like, oh, poor me, my life is hard, but actually not really looking around and looking at other groups of human beings, women, marginalized groups, certain ethnic groups, and actually looking and going, actually, like, cool, like what's life for them? Like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't minimize the pain and difficulty that men face, because I actually, like I said, I work with men, so I see that men face a lot of difficulty and it needs to be acknowledged and raised actually and seen and not minimized, right? Because if we minimize it, we don't start to tackle it because we go, oh, well, other people's pain's worse than us. I'm not talking about competition here. It's not some sort of trauma Olympics we're getting in, but it's like there's no war on men. All there is the battles of the mind, right? That have been around for thousands of years. Why is it that things like monks in Tibet and in India have been meditating and finding ways to control the mind, right? Or at least observe the mind in various ways, because it gives you power, right? And what I see a lot with men and in certain circles is that they're talking about this war on men, and it by the definition assumes that the war is by women. Women are having a war against men, which is one thing that's not necessarily true at all either. Yes, there's a lot of anger from many women. I don't disagree with that. I think that's very true, and I don't think that's necessarily correct, but I also understand why, right? Because many things have happened through history, and I don't think it's useful to have this very kind of polarized men versus women thing. It actually really hurts us all. I see it in dating, I see it in people's relationships. This kind of idea of men versus women actually is hurting the world a lot more than anything, and I really advise the women that I work with and the men that I work with to stop demonizing the other gender and start to come to a place of compassion and understanding. But the thing is the world is crying out for men to stand up and make a difference in the world, right? So men are saying, when I say men, I don't mean all men, because I'm not so ignorant. But it's like the world is crying out for us to like stand up against inequality and abuse and violence and manipulation and the polarization as well of the world, right? But instead, when we say there's a war on men, it just says that, oh, I've got no responsibility. I'm just going to back out and watch on the sidelines. Like, I'm being fought against. It's like, no, the battle is in your own mind and heart, and always has been and always will be. for you to take responsibility for your life. And this is not me having a go, because this is what I say to my coaching clients, which is incredibly empowering actually. Because when you tell yourself it's outside of you and someone else is controlling you, it makes you powerless. It makes you powerless to change your life because you can't do anything. And I guarantee you, wherever state you are in your life, right, there is things that you can do and there's shifts that you can make in your life to make your life infinitely better. And I'll stand by that statement to the point where if you don't believe that's true, you get in contact with me. Find me on Instagram at @theauthenticman_, or you email me at hello@theauthenticman, and we can have a conversation. And I guarantee you, after we talk for an hour, 90 minutes, that you will see what it is that you can do, right, to make a change and difference. And the question becomes then, if there are things that you can change and make a difference in your own life, why are we not doing them? Or why are you not doing them, right? Why are you preferring to put that power outside of you instead of take responsibility? Because we have a lot of distractions and things we can get addicted to, porn, TV, mobile phones, drugs. They're all in really easy access. It's something that I saw with one of my clients, and we did a little graph actually showing like where he's putting his time in terms of enjoyment, benefit, and accomplishment. And a lot of the things that he's putting his time were the easy wins, the drinking, the watching Netflix, the doing drugs, the smoking weed, because they're easy access and they provide enjoyment very quickly. But many of the things that actually create long-term benefit and long-term enjoyment, meditation, reading, journaling, certain types of exercise, building business, and all these sorts of things, they take more effort and they're harder, but they actually create a lot more benefit and goodness in our lives and make us feel good about ourselves. One of the things that people come to me a lot about is like wanting to date confidently or wanting to feel more confident in their lives in general, and to speak their truth and speak their emotions. And a lot of it is these practices of doing these things regularly on a regular basis. So inside this idea of a war on men, it's like, actually the battle is in your mind. The battle is in conquering your own trauma, your own dysfunctional patterns, your own addictions. And this is the real war for every single man, right? This is the real war that's been spoken about even if you go to a spiritual text like the Bhagavad Gita, it was about a battle on a battlefield, but actually it's about the battle of each individual man or woman's mind, right? And the consciousness of expanding and growing and stepping into the ultimate union, or yoga as it's described in the book. And this is what we do in our own mind. It's been happening for thousands of years. And it requires us to really create a level of discipline, a level of wisdom, a level of discernment for ourselves and what we're trying to create. Instead of putting all this power outside of us, governments, women, feminists that are trying to hurt us, when really we hold all the agency and power in our lives to create what we want. And if we get kind of lost in laziness, right, in entitlement, or in our wounding, in our negative thinking, in our assumptions, misogyny, fear, anxiety, aimlessness, judgments, our shadow, or in just inertia, right? This is where we fall into this trap of like, poor us, the world's against us, there's nothing I can do, right? And again, I totally understand this. It's not me, again, having a go, because I know sometimes I speak in strong terms, but it's just because I really believe in this is how we can change our lives, right? And maybe your life isn't in a terrible place when you're listening to this. Maybe your life is okay, but actually it's like, the question to ask is like, how do I take my life to the next level? How do I take my life to a place where I'm really loving my life and I'm really like turned on by my life and what I do? And it really comes down to us really cultivating things like commitment to ourselves, to other people, to causes, to things that are meaningful to us, being determined as well. Like, if there's something you want to do, maybe, you want to find a certain type of job. It's like, are you collapsing every time you get rejection? Like, you put an application, it doesn't go well, you collapse. Or maybe you're wanting to create a relationship, and every time you get to the third date and it doesn't lead anywhere, you suddenly fall into the pattern and habit of like, oh, everything's fucked, it's never going to work, no one wants me. You project this small rejection in this moment now, and you project it into the future as if it becomes everything in the future, and there's no hope. It's like, that's where determination comes in, is that you go, okay, cool, this thing has happened, but I'm going to come back to what I want and keep taking action towards it. Because things don't just happen instantly. I know we're very used to this instant gratification, but the truth is life, the things you want in life take a while. You know, you look at all the men we look up to, they're not overnight successes. They may appear to be, but they've been working for 10, 15, 20 years to get to where they got to. It takes hard work and diligence and determination and resilience through rejection. So this is just the nature of life, right? And then more and more is when we say there's a war on men, there's something outside of us, someone else is trying to hurt us, we give them power. And we say that we don't have any power and we don't have any ability to control or change our lives. You know, and I see this a lot in people's dating lives when they come to me, or their relationships especially. When they come to their dating life and they go, oh, women have all the power, you know, women don't want me because I'm X, Y, and Z. And then when we start getting into it and we start exploring, we come up with literally sometimes hundreds of things they can do to make a difference in their dating lives. And then they start taking some of these actions, right? We might only agree on 4 or 5, and they start taking them regularly, and they realize that the perception they had was all based on their fears and worries, and none of it was really coming from a place of like what's possible for them. And when we start to step into possibility, we start to see our perspective is very narrow on our fears and worries, because that resolves our identity. Our ego loves to indulge in fear and worry because it knows this place, it understands this place. When you start stepping into like what's possible for me when I take responsibility, it's very scary for the ego because it's a lot of unknown out there. So I'm just really saying that you have power in your life, right? If you don't believe yourself to be powerless, then that's also going to be your experience. It's also going to be your experience of life. If you think you're powerless, you're going to keep experiencing powerlessness, right? Because you think you're powerless. We really experience so much of our life, if not all of our life, through our thinking. So I want you to just see that this idea of war on men, it's just a hype. It's just a hype by influencers and people who are trying to get you to click on their stuff and get angry and buy their courses. And you know, maybe I should probably do a bit more of this, right? But I just don't believe in that. There's no integrity in that, right? Because there's no war on men. There's you, right? There's groups of men, right, who can come together and support each other and actually help each other grow, like, you know, men's groups or men's retreats or long-term men's programs, right? I've been part of all of those things and seen incredible things happen for men just through coming together and being committed to something, committed to themselves, committed to a group, you know, learning to be more present, learning to be more grounded, learning to be more compassionate, learning to grow, right? Instead of blaming, right? And pointing the finger at others and saying that, you know, the system's against us and on all sorts of things. And yeah, maybe the system isn't built to help men like you, right? But it's not completely impossible for you, right? With the right kind of mental attitude, the right willingness to overcome your habits and patterns and trauma and things like that, then the world really opens up to you, really opens up to what's possible for you to create. And I guess some of the things I would say to do this is accountability. If you're looking to really do this, is accountability in your life. That's been vital to me in the last 5 or 6 years. I've had coaches, I've had accountability groups, I've had mentors, I've had like group programs, all sorts of things like that. You know, those all made a massive difference to me instead of accountability, because I think that is the thing that's missing most in men's lives, is that someone to hold you accountable to the things you say you want. That's where we're missing. You know, if I want to buy a Ferrari in the next 5 years, that means I need to do things every single week for that. Who's going to keep me accountable? Because if I have a weak level of commitment for myself, might not do that on my own. But how I build that level of commitment is through having others keep me accountable, keeping myself accountable, and being accountable to a group. And then over time, I learned to have a strong bond of accountability with myself. Learning to do hard stuff. You know, I'm always getting my clients to do this. It might be meditation for you. It might be ice baths. It might be running. It might be going to the gym. You know, learning to do hard stuff and just do it, right? Even if it's boring and hard, because that's what a lot of life is little things we have to do that are boring and hard. I'm a massive fan of meditation, as I just mentioned there, because I think it helps us to observe the mind and not be so judgmental, because I think that's one of the biggest problems we have, is that we're reactive and we're judgmental. And when we're emotionally and mentally reactive, we're unable to just pause and make conscious, grounded decisions. And again, I see this with my clients, and when I do various meditations with them, not just kind of silent ones, and they start to see their inability to just observe instead of always reacting. It's something as simple as this: is sitting down for 5 minutes and not moving a muscle. Because what happens in your own body is you're going to see there's going to be desire to itch and scratch and shift and shuffle. It's like, make that decision, just sit in one place and not move. That is a really small way you can start to train yourself to just be with what is happening, because you don't need to itch. The itch will go away. The slight discomfort in how you're sitting, it will go away if you just leave it. But there's a part of your mind that doesn't believe that, and that is why you react so quickly to itching and shifting and shuffling. Because imagine you're doing the same thing in your life: the shifting, the shuffling, the scratching, the adjusting, instead of observing and being patient and watching, and then making decisions from a grounded place, from choice. So those are some tiny things you do internally for yourself. But like I said, there's no war on men. There's no war on masculinity. There's actually a real desire for more healthy masculinity, being brought through. And I've got plenty of other podcast episodes where you learn about what that is and how to do that. If you're looking for support in any of these areas of dating, relationships, intimacy, your masculinity, your kind of life, then feel free to send me a message. You can find me at @theauthenticman_ on Instagram. You can also send me an email, hello@theauthenticman.net. If you want to contact me about coaching or any of my programs that are coming up as well. And if you're in a relationship, I also do relationship coaching for couples with my partner. But without further ado, I'll leave you to it.